knocked loose. White dive on it.
This is twice now the Celtics have been first to the floor. And he's trying to save with Hauser. Unbelievable.
Boston first to the floor. So good.
Brown fakes, fires up the three. Tatum dives on the floor. Everybody dives. Jaylen Brown with the flush. Blocked by Porzingis. He's doing it all. Tatum spinning, driving, layup. Washington drive. Blocked by White. Oh, what a block from Derrick White.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Back to our usual format here after a short post-Las Vegas break. Alongside me, a man who is willing to contribute thousands and thousands of cents to the Celtics tax bill. It's Wayne Spoony. Spoony, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great, Ben. I'm doing great. Couple things off the top. I have Summer League Diaries Part 1, I think, coming out on Celtics blog tomorrow, where I deep dive into our every move at Summer League. Ben, obviously you and Jake are heavily featured, including hopefully some quotes you don't remember saying, but no, I'm just kidding. I did say when we walked into Thomas and Mack, Ben had the first of several miscommunications about who's buying the beer, so which I think happened at least twice to us. But Ben, if you don't know, Ben had an extra day at Summer League with Jake and I not there. So I would love to hear your Summer League rap on that day we were not there.
Yeah, dude. It was weird when you guys left. Like, we were at so my second last night, we're at the Thomas and Mack Center, and you guys were going straight from there to the airport. And then you guys left, and, you know, you would think bountiful entertainment in front of me. I've got lots to do, lots of basketball to watch. Walking around the concourse is a lot of fun. It's a who's who of the NBA industry. And yet there was a quietness, no one to accidentally buy too many beers for. No one to banter with about my guy, Nikola Vucevic from from the Wizards. Shout out my guy who's never going to see an NBA floor again.
Nope.
It was a little eerie, but I hung out. I watched some ball. I had a good time. And then went home. And, you know, like when you're out with a group and it's a little difficult to like decide what you're going to do that night, what you're going to eat that night, because you don't want to kind of like determine yourself, anyone's budget or what they're sort of willing to do or spend. On my own, took myself out for a very, very fancy dinner. Had myself a couple old fashions at the bar at a restaurant there at the Aria, which was fantastic. Walked around the casino. I ran into Bronny James walking around with his entourage. Jaden Springer. I ran into Chet Holmgren as well, who was like taking photos with a bunch of much younger people. And I felt very old, very uncomfortable asking, so I kept walking. That was a lot of fun. Next day, I went up to Fremont, which is like the Las Vegas downtown area. Went to the Circa Sportsbook, which is like the IMAX of sports books.
That looked awesome, dude. That picture looked crazy.
I did not want to leave. You could like play blackjack, video blackjack while watching like CinemaScope Sports, and watched Australia nearly come back and surprise Team USA there. And I was looking around for people I was going like, fuck yeah, Aussies, come on. And there was just like no one there who gave a shit, which was very sad. Then I grabbed my luggage, went to the Thomas and Mack Center, and I got to see Josh Christopher just explode against OKC. I think he had 20 points in the fourth quarter. And you know, Spoonie, watching games in the Cox Pavilion there, the whole arena is into it. He was posterizing dudes. He was hitting heat check after heat check, and that place was just electric. That was awesome. And that was the last thing I did. Then I grabbed my bags, went to the airport for the roughly 20-hour commute home to Sydney, and here I am back talking to you. So what a time. We had a great time there in Vegas. What about you? What's your post-Vegas hangover like?
Yeah, I just, like, that was so much fun, and just thinking back, so I sent you all the videos and pictures I took while we were at Vegas, and just, like, kind of reminiscing, like, that video I have where I'm, like, on the Celtics bench practically, and it just, like, that's so wild, man. Like, I could have just, like, touched Tony Dobbins. I could have pushed his ass if I wanted to. Not that I ever would. I love Tony Dobbins, but it's just, like, this access you will never get if you go to a normal NBA game. And confirmed that was Mike Zarin, who we were like tracking through the Thomas and Mack Center, which is unfortunate that we didn't go up and say hi, but that's okay. But just thinking back, like, it was a really great time. Josh Christopher also had 23 today, so damn it, Miami, they've done it again.
Apparently.
Really good time. A lot of great memories. Honestly, just like hanging out with you guys was awesome. Like, we're not going to be able to do that very often, where like the three of us can just kick it, have a drink, and watch basketball. So it was one of the best trips I've ever taken, man. Like, and I would love to go back next year. I don't know if my wife would agree with that, but we'll see. Maybe every other year we'll figure it out. And then, I took a red eye home, which may have been a minor mistake, but I had Monday and Tuesday off work. So I basically slept the days away. I'm back to it, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. I want to give a shout out to Christine Ryan as well, who's a listener of the show. She had sort of accumulated a bunch of stuff and memorabilia and like signed posters and things like that, and had been sending them to Spoonie, who finally had the opportunity to give them to Jake and I when we all caught up in Vegas as well. So I've got those things ready to get framed. And hang them up somewhere, I guess. Maybe I can finally take down the green screen and just hang up some legitimate memorabilia behind me. So thanks to Christine for that. And shout out to our guy Jake as well, who is currently holidaying in Bali, Jake Eisenberg, just really, really resting off the sting of the Las Vegas trip. So well done, well played, sir. Now, you mentioned Mike Zarin before, and maybe he decided I need to get these creeps off my back, Spoonie, because we were definitely creeping on poor Mike Zarin there
100%.
in the Thomas and Matt concourse. What, do we go up and say hello? Do we just leave the guy alone?
Maybe
he thought, maybe I just need to re-sign or extend rather Sam Hauser to get these nerds off my back, Spoonie, because today I woke up to the news Sam Hauser extended 4-year, $45 million, fully guaranteed, no options, no team, no player options at the end of that extension, but it's going to add a shitload, Spoonie, of extra tax dollars to the Celtics bill next season. So what are your thoughts on this Sam Hauser extension?
Yeah. And so right now he's still got that 1 year, $2 million this season. And then the next year, which is also when Tatum's Supermax kicks in, Sam will get a very big raise too. But let's just forget the context of wow, we're going to pay $300 million in tax in 2 years or a year, really. What a deal. 4 for 45 is an incredible value. When we saw Brad and Sam sitting across the court from us in the Cox Pavilion, I yelled, sign 4 for 40 as a joke, because I thought that was not nearly enough money for Sam Hauser. And then here's fucking Brad Stevens whipping it out again, the extension king. He's addicted to extensions, and he signs another really, really great value. Hauser just showed he can play in the finals. How many bench wings are you I trust that dude in the finals? It's a very, very small amount, and a lot of those guys are making way more than $11 million a year. So I figured Hauser would be the tax casualty. I just assumed that it made sense, right? He was due. Even this is an $8 million, $9 million raise for him, which is pretty significant. But I don't know what the plan is. Our owners are selling. Wick's and it's not my money. So I'm not sure what the plan is tax-wise going forward. But fuck, who cares, man? It's not our money either, Ben. What a deal. Glad Sam's sticking around.
Yeah, well, a quick glance at the cap sheet is this was from Bobby Marks, who is a much more intelligent analyst than I. But essentially, for the 25-26 projected roster and season, the projected salary is $225 million. The tax threshold of that year is $187.9 million. First apron, $195.9 million. On the second apron, $207.8 million. So suffice to say, we're well and truly above that second apron there. And then a tax penalty of $210 million as well. So obviously well and truly over the tax, and with that will come a very painful repeated tax bill that sort of exponentially increases year on year. Whoops, I just removed Spoonie from the stream instead,
I'm back, baby.
Rusty, we've been doing these pods in person.
Yeah.
I haven't done it remotely in quite a while. But what's interesting online is that there's a lot of people sort of taking this stance, we've really dug ourselves a deep financial hole. What are we going to do? And I think the takeaway from that is a lot of people who follow basketball and sort of, I don't know, lower than the financial upperclassmen of that of a billionaire know a lot more about the CBA than they do about how billionaires manage their finances. And maybe I won't read this whole thing, but Eric Weiss, our friend, had a good take on this with a thought exercise that say Boston is operating at a $100 million deficit this season due to their $200 million luxury tax bill. The team is worth roughly $5 billion. To say they secure a line of credit to cover at a low interest using their shares, the team shares as a collateral. The bank covers $100 million and ownership pays, say, $5 million in interest annually, but the team is operating at a loss, which is tax deductible based on the percentage of ownership. Say the gross specs total revenue from all holdings this year is $500 million. They own 51% of the team, so they get to use 51% of the operating loss from the Celtics as a tax offset. The percentage reduction in income tax is roughly double the cost of the loan. So when the team isn't in the luxury tax, it generates around $100 million in profit annually. If Boston ran up $1 billion in luxury tax penalties over those 6 years, hypothetically, the interest would cost only $50 million. So you start to see a landscape in which this is sort of affordable, which the team can then cover in that scenario from the operating revenue. So they could then pay off that debt by selling a percentage of the team, paying out from that profit over time, a combination of both operating revenue. They could simply carry the debt and pay it off when the new owners sell the team. So that is a very sort of zoomed out from, again, Eric Weiss, a much more intelligent financial manager than I could ever be. I've struggled with my own household budget, laying out a potential avenue in which this could be managed by a group of very wealthy people, which is currently the Grossbeck ownership group, Spoonie. So you can see ways where it could be maneuvered.
Yeah. So it's essentially just like the team is so valuable now that you can use the team itself as an asset to borrow cheap money against. And man, it's good to be rich in the United States, huh? Like, well, we'll just take the loss and I make so much money. It's like kind of a gain for me almost in a way. So I think there's a lot of maneuverability, and I think it goes back to like the reason these salaries are getting so high was because max salaries, the mid-level exception, all that stuff is based on basketball-related income. The reason all this stuff's going up is because the league is making fuck tons of money, and people want pieces of these teams in a league that just keeps growing, keeps getting more popular in Asia too, which is just a massive growth market. It's probably the most popular American sport in like India and China, who have massive populations. So banks, investment firms, venture capitalists, they want in on NBA teams, and you can just use that to your advantage and pay some luxury tax. And we are the team in the NBA right now, probably the team in NBA history anyway. So I'm not too worried about it. If there's a cap casualty, there's a cap casualty, right? It may happen. I think DJ Daniel brings up a good point in the comments, like Hauser and Pritchard will have to be traded for picks. Maybe not, maybe one of them. But that's what's so great about Hauser and Pritchard's extensions. They are so tradable. They were so, like, instead of having to give picks to get off their money, we'll probably get some assets in return, which is always a positive. And that's how you build sustainable success over the long term. Brad Stevens is really good at this, man. He's really, really good at this.
Well, even above, like organizationally, top down from Wick and down through Brad. But we talk about maneuverability with the assets on the roster, and we also talked about maneuverability with using the equity of the franchise to manage this tough financial time. But beyond Pritchard and Hauser and the maneuverability with their contracts, even moving forward, you've got guys. I hate to say it out loud, but Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday. If you were to shed those salaries, obviously the team would take on an entirely different identity. But then you look at getting yourself under the second apron and at least reset from a repeater tax standpoint. Meanwhile, you've got the Jays, both still young, both locked up like crazy long term. And you're looking at a very favorable outcome, all things considered. Yes, you have to shed some big names, some big salary, but you've got a quick retooling, reset season, and you can move on from there. So, not my money, hashtag not my money. Looks like we've got multiple ways that we can go about this. So as a Celtics fan, I think you've got to be pretty happy in the end. Yeah,
absolutely. And, we'll see, but here's the most important thing. The team is coming back next year. This team has a great chance to repeat. And any team that has Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown on it is going to be in the mix as a contender. And then Moshe in the chat says, do you see any key players being traded soon to clear cap space? We cannot clear cap space. Like, it's just never going to happen. As long as we have both the Jays on Supermaxes, it's almost impossible for us to clear cap space. We'd have to, only have those two on the roster. And then you won't even have enough cap space to get a comparatively good team. So maybe we cut some money to save on luxury tax. We don't know. That's kind of where we're at right now. Like Eric Weiss laid out the ways we might not have to do that. So, but we will not have cap space for a very long time.
No, we will not. And we can't even aggregate salaries to change two players into one and consolidate financial assets or roster assets in that sense as well. And I believe that there's a first round pick penalty that we're up against as well, starting as soon as next year, where is it your first round pick automatically just defaults to the last pick in the draft, or do you lose it entirely?
7 years out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So our 2031 pick will be 30th, no matter what. We could be awful that year, and it will be 30th. Yeah. It's pretty ridiculous, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Who cares? Tatum will be 30.
Now, we're going to circle back to the Summer League, which just ended earlier today with, unfortunately, a loss to the Philadelphia 76ers. But it doesn't matter. I think that the best way to look at Summer League, especially this iteration of the Celtics Summer League campaign, is just a series of possessions to take data and takes from, and not really looking at what their record was or how many games were won or lost or anything. It's just a series of possessions that the coaching staff and the more obsessively minded fans can look at and pore over the many months of no basketball that we'll get to after the Olympics. So to begin, we're going to look at Lizard Brain Takes, which is a Spoonie-invented amazing segment, which we unfortunately haven't been at for a while now, but end of the Summer League campaign seems like as good a time as any, Spoonie, to get to some Lizard Brain Takes. So before you get to your first Lizard Brain Take, I want to remind the people exactly what the concept is.
Okay, so they're in the practice of law, there's this plaintiff's theory called the reptile theory. And essentially what it is you ignore actually trying to win with the law and just play to the jury's emotions. Just it's unfair. They shouldn't be able to get away with this. That person died, and it's ignore the law, focus on the facts, and just get them to feel bad for you, so they give you a verdict and you win a bunch of money. So I just changed a little bit. Lizard Brain Takes pure emotion. In fact, I think often we don't even really believe them, but there's just that little kernel in the back of your head that's your lizard brain taking over, being what, but what if, do you feel that way though? A little bit. So that's the genesis. We don't really believe these, but there's just a little kernel of feeling there. So mine's caveat. Yes, yeah. I think I could see myself hating Baylor Scheierman's game.
Wow.
I think I could see it coming, dude. It's some of the, and maybe it's just Summer League shit, but he did the same stuff in college where, some of the shots he takes, it's I thought you were supposed to be this heady, smart, Joe Ingles type player. That shot he took this game with 30 seconds left and he pulls up from 34. I know he just hit one, but dude, what the fuck are you doing, man?
He got dunked on by David Jones and then
popped
his three in his
too,
face.
Yeah,
popped his three in his face immediately after and splashed it. I'm this guy's got that dog in him. And then that aforementioned three afterwards where he just what are you doing, man? That's not the shot in this situation.
No.
So you can see yourself hating his game. That's interesting. And folks in the chat, folks listening later, let us know what you think. Do you agree, disagree with that Lizard Brain Take? I went in a completely different direction, Spoonie. So I'm talking tendencies and skill set here. Just another caveat, not dimensions, not achievements. Baylor Scheierman is closer to Derrick White than Jaylen Brown is to Jayson Tatum.
What?
So in just the basketball acumen sense, in the way that they are a Swiss Army knife, in a way that they, they're not the quickest, they're not the strongest, they're not the most agile, they're not the most athletic player, but they play the game the right way. Again, this is hugely contrary to your Lizard Brain Take, Spoonie. They can do a little bit of everything and act as that conduit between the other players with maybe a more hard-coded skill set and elite NBA set of talents. The way that Derrick White is that connective tissue to our starting five or top six, or however you want to describe it, I think Baylor Scheierman showed flashes of being that to this Summer League roster, and his can-do everythingness from a talent standpoint and a basketball acumen standpoint. I think there's flashes of the Derrick White archetype of player, and that similarity draws Baylor Scheierman and Derrick White closer together than Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are drawn by their sort of elite top-end talents. Lizard Brain.
So, okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I think you're right. As far as he projects, at least on the offensive end, to be kind of like a Derrick White type of guy with his ability to run pick and roll hit open shots, the occasional bailout, like pull up three. I think defensively is where I'm not totally seeing the vision there. I think Baylor's got some real issues on the defensive end, even in summer league. He hasn't looked like terrible or anything like that, but there's times where you can just kind of imagine, like, man, if he was having to like guard real NBA dudes, this could be really bad. But I like Jalen and Jayson. I don't know. It's difficult to like really parse out how far apart they are, because Jalen's like the 15th best player in the league and Tatum's like the 4th. And like Derrick White's like the 40th and Baylor's probably like the 200th. But like when you're all-star and then the jump to all NBA is a fucking massive gap, man, where it flattens out between like 50 and 200. It's kind of just like, what type of player do you need? So it's of course it's a lizard brain take, but I see the vision, Ben. I understand where you're coming from.
And I guess it's like the ceiling of what their ideal role would be on a team. And I think they're, obviously hugely speculative, but I think, like, say we see the idealized, fully realized potential of Baylor Scheierman. I think that his role on an elite championship caliber team would be similar to that of what Derrick White's role is on this team, if that makes any sense. That's kind of how I got there.
All right. Okay.
Reminding the world that these are lizard brain takes again.
Yes. Yeah.
Cancelled.
Okay. I've got an absurdly positive one. I think I'm falling for Anton Watson, dude. Like I talked about it on Green with Envy. I think we talked about it when we were in the Vegas hotel room with all the cameras and the mics. Just the three boys in a hotel room with a bunch of cameras and lights. Yeah, candles. Yeah. Barry Manilow on the radio. But my lizard brain take is like, I think he's going to carve out a role, and it might be this season, and like be a legitimate role player. Like, he's just so smart. He reminds me, I think he could be like the Luke Cornett, but switchable instead of rim protection. If that, because like the same kind of skill set as Cornett, where he's just like always involved, setting screens, dribble handoffs, making the right pass. And then on the defensive end, like, he's not going to be a great defensive player, but he allows you to be switchable. Whereas Luke's like, he's not a great defensive player, but he's an excellent rim protector. So deployed appropriately, he's got positive value on that end, and he's good enough on offense. And like, I really like what he does, dude. Like, he's just always moving. Space is perfect. His rolls are so well paced when he rolls to the rim. And he had like a nasty little couple crossovers in this game too on people. Like, I'm on the wagon, the Anton wagon.
Yeah, he's hitting his threes as well. I think you nailed it. Like, if deployed appropriately, at least in his first season or two as an NBA player. But, he would not be the first undersized big to succeed in that kind of role. You're looking at guys like, Draymond Green, for example, who came in, many doubters circling them as far as what their impact might be able to be. And then they based on their sort of baseline foundational skill set, they found a way to contribute to an NBA team. And, I mentioned basketball acumen with Baylor Scheierman, but I would really reserve that term for Anton Watson as well, who clearly, like you talked about it, like you said, on Green with Envy, like, he just cuts at the right time. He knows when to set a screen, re-screen, roll. He does all these off-ball things to facilitate offense and defense. And it feels like the majority of the time when anything good happens on the court for this Summer League roster, like, Anton Watson is kind of lurking in the shadows of what made that happen, what instigated that good moment for the season, is rarely present in sort of the worst moments, the turnovers and the offensive fouls and whatever it might be. So he just has this really fine-tuned nose for the game and that basketball acumen as well. So I had one of my Lisbury tanks was that Anton Watson is the most likely Summer League Celtic to make an NBA roster by the end of next season. So giving him a bit of leeway. Hopefully we lock him down with that two-way this year, but I think he's going to find his way onto a permanent role somewhere quite quickly as well. It's hard in the Summer League because evaluating players, it's almost easier to evaluate the role players, because at least in the vacuum of this Celtics team, the ceiling for even like the best players like Neemias Queta or Jaden Springer or whoever is going to be being a role player on an NBA roster. But what we're asking of these guys is to play like the alpha roles on these teams. And that's just not what we're ever going to ask of Jordan Walsh or JD Davidson or even Baylor Scheierman, for example. And so it's almost easier to assess the role player guys who are playing roles on this team. So like the role that Anton Watson has played on this team would be similar to his ceiling role on an NBA roster. So in that sense, it's easier to sort of take the takeaways from his performances and apply them to what it might look like on an NBA roster.
That's a fucking killer point, Ben. That is a really, really good point because Jordan Walsh's problem is that he's being asked to play like he's Jaylen Brown, and he's obviously not Jaylen Brown, right? Like some of the shots he's taking, clearly they've empowered him. Like try to break guys down off the dribble, go ahead and take that pull up three, like let it fly, and that that's meaningless. Like, it happened to Hauser too. Like Hauser had a really bad summer league, his last summer league, and then all of a sudden he's like a solid rotation guy.
Yeah.
Because he's just not built for summer league. But yeah, that's a great point. Like what Watson is doing, he's going to be able to just do on the Celtics, and it will look even better when the Jays and Jrue Holiday and Derrick White are out there with him. And like Walshy's never gonna be like, give him the ball, let him run pick and roll, attack the mismatch, get downhill. Although he's had some moments, like even before, he had a great game today, which is awesome. Finally, like even the third quarter of the previous game, like Walsh had like 4 or 5 possessions where he got like straight downhill, and it looked really good. But I'm Watson. That's such a good point. And even like Davidson, he hasn't been amazing, but he's not been bad. His role is a little bit closer just because he's a point guard and he's going to have the ball in his hands, even if he's only doing it for 8 minutes a game. But like Springer had that massive game. Like, what does that even matter or mean? Like, he's never going to be in a position to like have the ball that much in the NBA.
And anyone who knows anything knows that Springer and even JD to some extent are just but sort of perpetually hovering in that cloud of like too good for Summer League, not really good enough for the NBA. Like your proving grounds are the NBA, and you're going to really struggle to even find playing time to prove yourself in that realm as well. So, obviously good luck to those guys, and I hope that we blow out many teams such that we can give them runs on, in NBA minutes on NBA floors.
For sure.
But it seems unlikely. Yeah, but we do have to give a shout out to Jordan Walsh though, 7 for 14 against Philly, 4 of 8 from 3. Finally, his 3 started going down. Definitely had a better first half than a second half, and we'll just ignore the 6 turnovers. But Walshy, great exit to Summer League there. Finally showed us what we were all looking for. I have one more lizard brain take.
Okay.
Okay, just hear me out. Prime Isaiah Thomas, so Celtics Isaiah Thomas, would be, at best, maybe a top-tier 6 man in today's NBA. And
whoa.
Yeah, lizard brain takes. And this is a Jalen House sort of fueled take.
Okay.
Because Jalen House was impressive in stints for the Summer League Celtics and, showed a lot of similarities as far as his personality traits to old man Eddie House, who we know and love, but too small even for Summer League. And teams were going at him in the Sixers' final possession today, where they'd been switching out Jalen House for offense, defense in the last few possessions of the game. Jalen House got stuck on the court for the Sixers, one of their last offensive possessions. And it was just like no-brainer, just go at him, score over him. That's your offense. And it's so easily executed. Sure, you can send help, and then it just opens up passing lanes, gets the defense into rotation. Like it puts the defense in the worst possible position. And I think that offenses nowadays, and 2017 is not even that long ago, it's like 7 years ago, nowadays offenses are just way too sophisticated, and there's way too many heady young assistant coaches on the backbenches who are going to like tap the coach on the shoulder and be like, Isaiah Thomas is awesome, but you can just like post him up or put him into pick and roll every possession, and it's lights out for our offense. And I just think nowadays that would not translate well, prime Isaiah Thomas, to the current NBA offensive landscape. Hurts me to say it. It's a lizard brain take, but it's true. Tell me I'm wrong.
Is it prime IT? We're talking like the dude who came 5th in MVP.
Top 5
voting.
MVP, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That would just go. And I would say the same for Kemba Walker as well. Prime Kemba Walker could not play
to
that extent in today's league.
Do you think that about Trae Young? He's a 6 man.
Yeah. Like Trae Young is one of those guys who, like, I'm being told in the chat.
It's a lizard brain take. It's a lizard brain take. Yeah.
It's unacceptable. Maybe even for a lizard brain take. But Trae Young is one of those guys, sure, he's like technically deserving of a max contract, which he has gotten, or a max extension or whatever he had. But like, you're never going to win a championship with the guy because
100%.
He's just a black hole defensively. And so in that sense, like as an organization, I've always fundamentally disagreed with going in that direction because you're setting your ceiling, both financially and in terms of technically what you can achieve on the court, because you know what the ceiling is, at least for your defense in that sense. And unless they're absolutely lights out Steph Curry level world bending on offense, and even Steph Curry had to put in crazy hard work to prepare his body defensively to get himself sort of out of that category. And even then, he sort of still has one foot in that category. With Trae Young, with Kemba Walker, with Prime IT. They're just so bad defensively, so small. The level to which they get picked on in today's league would be unacceptable, I think. So that's
yeah, fair enough. I think, and Curry's like 6'3", right? He's not nearly as undersized as these other guys. I think the person who proves this point the best is, I wouldn't go as far as like sixth man, but if you're saying like it doesn't make sense to build your team around a small guard, I would totally agree with that. Is Chris Paul. He's like widely regarded as one of the best point guards of all time, and he's a good defensive player, but in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. He's just too small. Teams can take advantage of him. He's made 2 Western Conference finals in his entire career, which is an insane stat. He's been around for like probably 17 years at this point. So, all right, we should probably move on, though. That was a spicy one. I was expecting Summer League takes, Ben. Damn.
Yeah, well, again, it ties to Jalen House, who I think I really hope finds some sort of NBA level role, most likely in the G League, if not overseas. But I don't think he is going to grow any further upwards. Obviously, he'll put on some musculature, but I don't think he's going to get any taller, and I think that might cap what he's capable of as a potential NBA player. But look, we're going to come back in a second and do our Summer League pressure re-rankings. But first, here's a quick word from our friends over at Game Time. Here we go. First of the Floor is brought to you by Game Time. I absolutely love going to MLB games when I'm in the US for the summer. One of my favorite sports memories is going to a Red Sox game while on my honeymoon in Boston on Patriots Day. It was just such a quintessential Boston outing. And when I head back next time, I'll be using the Game Time app to grab our tickets. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. We just bought all of our Vegas Summer League tickets very easily using the Game Time app, and you can take advantage of all the great Game Time features such as last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. Easy to find and buy MLB tickets or for every kind of event in your area. Plus, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. There's legitimately so many amazing features that keeps bringing me back to the Game Time app, including last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find MLB tickets, and views from all your seats in the venue, previews of the views from all the seats in your venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, and much more. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Spoonie, the Summer League re-rankings, which we have to get to. If I can just pull up the initial pressure rankings for Summer League, we had Jaden Springer ranked number 1 as far as who has the most pressure on them, what the potential outcome on the rest of their career might be based on how they performed this Summer League. We had Springer ranked 1. Then it was JD Davidson, Jrue Peterson, Baylor Scheierman, Jordan Walsh, and Anton Watson. Am I missing anyone there that you had highly ranked for your pressure rankings for Summer League?
No, I don't think so. I think it probably was worth a mention. I don't even think we brought him up originally as Kada. But Kada, I think the pressure was off of him because he had just signed the contract. But he aced the assignment. It's like, go look like an NBA center. He did. So to the extent we discussed him on the first pod, I don't think we really did. He would have been totally off the rankings at this point for me. But I can't think of anybody else.
Well, with KP, just on Cater as well, with KP out, it's like there's even less pressure. It's like we're down in our big man rotation, at least until Christmas. We're going to need some bigs. We've just signed you. So you're good either way. And he had some rough moments, but for the most part, hovered in that pocket of like, you're slightly too good to be here. Hence why you got shut down. So how would you adjust those rankings? Who would you say, for example, shot up to the top of these rankings, given everything we know now?
I think for me, it's JD. I think offensively, he actually looked fine. He's a good passer. Like, he's really fast. He's awesome in transition. He doesn't give you a ton in the half court, but like you can kind of just be like fast and decent in transition and carve a rollout if you're a good passer and can occasionally make a shot. I'm really concerned about his defense. Like, that was kind of the thing billing him, where it's like, well, he's undersized, but he's so athletic and he's so quick. He's going to be able to stay in front of anybody. He gets blown by way too much, like way too much. And if you're not also bringing like size and off-ball defense, which he is absolutely not, Like, you're just, doesn't matter how good. It's the conversation we just had. Like, there's no point in having you on a roster unless you're like an incredible offensive player, and he's definitely not good enough at offense to balance out his, man, he was like really bad defensively, I thought, for large stretches of these games. And it's like, these aren't all NBA players. Like, if you can't stay in front of these dudes, like, that's a real problem. So I think JD is like kind of easily one for me.
Yeah, and I think we said in our initial rankings, like, what like demonstrable elite NBA skill has he shown? And I think at the end of these 4 games, or the 2 games that he played, like, he still hasn't really quite answered that. There's still not one thing that stands out as like, wow, an NBA roster could really use JD Davidson's, elite whatever,
transition,
like shooting,
dribbling.
yeah, something. And there was just nothing there. And again, it just comes back to, like, he's got the NBA body kind of and the athleticism, but lacks the acumen that we showered guys like Baylor Scheierman, or I did, and Anton Watson with praise for. He lacks that. He doesn't really do anything consistently on either end other than defend poorly consistently. 3-point shot looked improved. So in that sense, like, that's a very Celtics friendly, a very modern NBA friendly skill set. But plenty of guys can shoot. So it's probably not going to be enough. But he's got that 2-way. So the pressure is at least, we'll say, eased for a little longer while he tries to figure it out. But like, at some point, if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. So yeah, I agree. He's top of my rankings after these 4 games.
Yeah, and he's 22 now. Like, obviously that's still very young, but it's not like Walsh where it's like he's 20. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like, yeah, he's really got to start showing something. He may have an opportunity. I mean, we're pretty light on especially point guard depth, really. So we'll see. Not a super encouraging summer for JD, though.
Well, in terms of that guard depth, is Jaden Springer just like automatically inserted above JD, for example, in the actual Celtics big boy roster in terms of the rotation for you?
Yeah, I think probably. He's got more NBA experience. I think at least you don't worry about him on the defensive end. He's probably, look, it's hard to evaluate Springer because Jake had a great point. He's like, he led Summer League in scoring last year. So it's difficult to take anything away from him looking good again this year. But I think at least Springer has, like, at least he'll go out there and defend, and then we can just have Tatum play point guard. Whereas Davidson, you can't say that about. It's like, we got to put the ball in his hands and he can't guard. That's a recipe for being really awesome in Europe.
Number 2 rankings. Yeah. Jordan Walsh.
Yeah, that's where I think I'm going to go. But I like when we were talking about it the first time, we were all like, even if he's not that good, he's 20, he's got the long-term deal. It's not that big of a deal. But he was so bad in those first couple of games that I'm glad he's shown some life. That's why I almost didn't have him at 2. But I think he's got to be number 2 just from the, like, even his defense didn't look great, dude.
No, not at all. Like, he's one-on-one defense even, which is meant to be, we talked about, can you possess one elite NBA skill? That's kind of what supposedly Jordan Walsh had coming out of college, and he didn't even really demonstrate that in the Summer League. It was tough for Jordan Walsh. I thought I had some notes on him. One thing he does quite consistently is he gets by his defender on offense, off the dribble, which I think is maybe a newly showcased skill for Jordan Walsh. I don't think he was necessarily doing that consistently in his first Summer League, and I noticed him doing that quite a bit. But once he gets downhill, he just has absolutely no idea, like negative understanding of what to do from that point. And it kind of defeats the purpose. Like, if you can break down your initial defender at the point of attack, if you don't know what to do from that point, then what are we doing?
Yeah. What's the point of having an advantage if you do nothing with that advantage? Yeah. He kind of reminds me of Romeo Langford in that way, because Langford could get by a defender and then he'd get to the rim and it's just like, uh-oh, now what do I do? And he'd probably end up just trying a layup that basically had no prayer. So that's a building block. Getting by people, especially, like, he looks good driving a closeout, I feel like. Getting by people, that's important. You need that in your game to be an NBA wing. It's the other stuff, or doing things after you get by that guy, that were pretty concerning to me. So, like, even though we said, hey, even if he's got a bad summer, it was really bad at times for Walshy, but I'm going to be latching on to this game today for a long time. For the next few months, I will say that.
Yeah, might go watch the highlights when we're done here.
Yeah.
5 or 10 more times. Who have you got ranked number 3? I think at this point onwards, really the pressure does start to dissipate a little bit because it was either our expectations were never that high. You're showcasing your abilities for scouts elsewhere, maybe in other leagues around the world, like in the case of Tyler Cook, for example. But yeah, who do you think?
He looked good.
Yeah, but like I don't think he's going to make an NBA team, right? So it's
no. You're right. No, absolutely. He just was like a solid summer league guy, which surprised me.
Totally.
But I think for me, I'm picking between two. I think I'm going to go with Springer just because he's got that $4 million contract. He looked really good. It's almost like he couldn't have done anything for the pressure to get relieved on Summer League because he's like, I think this is his 4th Summer League. Like, you better look freaking good in your 4th Summer League. It might be his 3rd. No, because he played before his rookie year, and this is going to be his 4th year in the league. So, yeah, this is his 4th Summer League. So, the fact that he's in Summer League, I think, means he's got pressure on him, I guess is what I would go with. But he couldn't have really done much else. But even still, he's got the tradable contract. He's not shown it in the NBA, and he's playing Summer League 4 years into the league, which is just not a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I like that he did everything he could with his chance. Like, you couldn't have really asked anything more of him in the one game that he played. And so, like, he hasn't failed at any of the steps available to him at this point. But it's just like you say, he's achieved these steps before. We've kind of learnt nothing other than you have at least maintained your abilities from last Summer League. And now we really just, sorry, as a plane flies like directly above my house, I apologize for the background noise. We just need to see you demonstrate that at a higher level if given the chance. And he may not be given the chance, like I said earlier. So I don't know, like we've kind of just gone full circle on the guy. And he remains a $4 million potential trade chip in a world where we can't aggregate salaries and are looking for little minute chunks of change to move around potentially around the trade deadline. So that's a brutal take on the guy because he's a great player, but that's just kind of where we're at, I think.
Yeah, it's totally unfair to him, but like that's the reality of the situation. Like if you just played better last year, you wouldn't be at Summer League. You know what I mean? So it's not like totally just us. But do you have Scheierman next? I think I don't know, or is it Watson?
I had Jrue Peterson next.
Oh, yeah, never mind. I forgot about Peterson. It's absolutely. I might even have Peterson over Springer, actually, now that I think about it. But it's pretty close with those two.
Because, like, looking at it programmatically from, like, a if this, then that standpoint, like, if he plays the same way that he has kind of always played in this Summer League, then what happens? And I think, like, he did. I think he demonstrated a little bit more of an expanded skill set. But again, it's Summer League, so how much can you take from it? But, like, the game that we saw him in the Cox Pavilion live, he was like doing rim defense for a little while, blocking shots at the rim, switching on to bigger players and like holding up again in Summer League. So that was a promising take from his performance. But for the most part, I don't think he really demonstrated his abilities beyond what we already knew of him. And so I think the pressure's on in that sense, Spoony.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Peterson's a great one. I just completely missed his name on our run sheet. So, I'm still recovering from Vegas here. He's got stuff to his game. Like the idealized version of Jrue Peterson has a much more diverse skill set than like Sam Hauser, who he's often compared to. I think the problem with Peterson is like, I'm not sure the shot's going to go in at a high enough rate. I'm not sure he can dribble, he can handle, he's got some shake, but does he have enough shake to get around NBA defenders? Probably not. And like, he does show some stuff on defense, but is like good enough on ball or good enough protecting the rim as the help side guy to like really positively impact your defense? Probably not. He's almost got like the Grant Williams when he first is like, he's okay at everything, but he's not going to be good enough at anything to like carve a role out in the NBA. So yeah, I think Peterson's like real tight to Springer for me. I was hoping for a little more on-ball dynamism or maybe like some hot shooting, but I do see the vision with him. I see why Brad's interested in him though, for sure. He showed at least that much, I think.
Yeah, he's compelling as a player, and just someone who needs NBA minutes, and we're just not going to be able to give it to him, and that's the case for a lot of these guys. Baylor Scheierman, you mentioned as potentially being next on your pressure rankings. Why is that?
So he looked great at times, and I also thought he's some really bad moments, man. Like defensively, like some horrible shots. Like I'm concerned about him off the dribble, not being able to create space. Like he just does not really get by anybody. But it may not matter. Like, you know, if he can catch and shoot threes, like he's definitely good enough to drive a closeout. And the big thing for Scheierman is, unlike Walshy, he knows what to do when he gets to the rim, either finish or hit the correct pass. And he had a couple nice righty finishes too, which is like making a mental note of that with his offhand. But I think just like you got to pick it up on the defensive end, dude, and like please stop the 30-footers. I'm sure it's just summer league bullshit, but that is going to kill me if he keeps shooting those.
Yeah, Joe Mazzulla won't just bench him if he does that in the real league. He might like make him like walk home in the snow or like something worse.
Choke him out jiu-jitsu style. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll wake up in a hospital with like bruises on his neck. Yeah, so I hope that he's not going to do that in the real league, but in the summer league, you know, maybe he's just got that like first round pick energy, first round pick to play on one of our summer league squads in quite a while. So maybe he's got some BDE coming out of that. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. I know. I basically called him like the Derrick White of the summer league squad earlier, because he has shown flashes of being that connective tissue and
for sure
being able to do a little bit of everything. But the pressure's on, I suppose, in the sense that there is a spot on the roster to be earned. And as long as he's in line to potentially earn that spot, the pressure's on him to either, you know, it's basically, I don't want to say it's his to lose, but it's there for him to gain. And like the coaching staff, the Celtics brass are going to be watching him really closely to see if he's eligible in any way, shape, or form. So as long as that's, you know, his world, the pressure's going to be on in that sense. So I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Sorry,
the only reason I might have Watson on this list is because he does not have a contract. I wonder if they're debating giving him the 15th spot or a two-way, and that's why he's not signed yet. But it seems insane to give a full roster spot to the 54th pick. But like, you know, they saw what we saw, man. Like,
wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. So, but
I mean,
other
they'll
than
definitely
that,
two-way him, right?
Yeah, I think they'll definitely two-way him. If Killian Tilly was eligible, he would have been number one on my list. Holy shit, that dude cannot defend. It sucks because he's got a kind of interesting offensive game. But good God, it was tough seeing him being the starting center on the Summer League team, dude.
I enjoyed watching him, though. He was fun.
He's interesting. He's fun. Yeah.
Any other standouts? I was going to mention Tilly, like no pressure really, at least from what I can ascertain, but he was just an interesting feature on the roster.
Jalen House was really fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. He was fun. Where do you think he ends up? What do you think is going to happen with him?
I think he might find a two-way somewhere. Worst case, I bet we exhibit 10 him. So if he sticks with Maine, he gets a little extra money when he gets cut during training camp. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks around us, gets the exhibit 10, and then is on. He'd be awesome in Maine. Like he'd be really fun in the G League, I think. But wow, he is a gunner, bro. He shoots everything. It's crazy.
He likes to run his mouth as well, just like his old
yes,
man,
he does.
Which I love. I love that.
Yeah.
I thought Jamias Ramsey was pretty cool. I thought he had some interesting flashes with the team. Great shooter, like a bit of a sniper in that sense, and you know, just a sizable-ish wing/guard player that, you know, that kind of archetype, those kinds of physical dimensions, Spoonie, can be valuable to NBA teams. So yeah, I thought he was interesting, and he sort of landed in that category of like, I think we've seen enough. You're going to stop playing. He didn't play the last 2 games of Summer League, so someone has found some level of interest in him, whether it be the Celtics or maybe someone else has thrown a deal his way. You know, if he was still being shopped around or still shopping himself around, rather, he'd still be playing. So something's going on there with him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he played really well. He's kind of a pain in the ass to watch because he doesn't like to pass, but he's like legitimately, I think, 6'4", 6'5", and he's got like a slick handle. It's a little mechanical, but he gets by guys. He creates space, and like I think there's like some serious defensive potential with him too. So yeah, Ramsey was really, I forgot about him because I think he only played the first 2 games. But yeah, he looked really good. He looked like he was better than Summer League. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody flipped him a two-way. Or like a non-guaranteed deal for next year or something like that. Like he definitely earned a spot in the league, I think.
Now, we've gone 50 minutes on a Sam Hauser extension and some Summer League. We talked
let's
about
get outta here.
a little peek behind the curtain. We talked about we'll make this like a 20, maybe 30-minute podcast. We do have to wrap up on some Team USA stuff, which will just be very, very brief on because, look, these are exhibition games. There's not a lot to take away from. I guess the main question is, like, how are our guys doing for Team USA? And for Jrue Holiday and Derrick White, it's been cool to see, and to some extent Jayson Tatum as well, like the rest of NBA Twitter react to just the impact that those guys have and how much they improve the play of the guys around them, even guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James, for example. And Jrue Holiday has continued his run as just like an insane chaos agent defensively, just like creating nightmares in the souls of the Aussie players and then subsequently the South Sudanese players. So that's been a lot of fun to see. Any takeaways from a Celtics perspective from Team USA?
I feel like Tatum needs to be a little more involved for my taste, at least. I have not watched like every minute of these games. I'm not going to pretend like I have, but Derrick White looked so good in that South Sudan fourth quarter. Like he was like running the show in crunch time and like making plays, diming up Anthony Davis. I think he had 5 assists in the second half and didn't play in the first half. And yeah, like Jrue, man, like I don't know what magic he found in that Cleveland series, but holy shit, is he just really good at basketball? Like he's just good at every part of basketball. It's incredible.
But yeah, especially since then. And Jayson Tatum still can't shoot for some reason, which is
I know,
frustrating.
it's very scary. It's very scary, Ben. I know it's small sample size. It's not a big deal. It's in there. That's a lizard brain take. Like, he can't shoot.
We'll keep tabs on that. But remember the first game, it was like, see what happens with Jayson Tatum in single coverage. He can score whenever he wants from wherever he wants. And it's like, well, he still can't shoot there, which is frustrating. Final point here. Paul Kasabian of Bleacher Report had this, but basically, did you hear about this, Spoonie? A EuroLeague head coach whose name is Ergen Adaman of the Greek team Panathinaikos. Please, God, I hope I got that right. Basically said, like, you're not the world champions, Boston Celtics, because you only won within the confines of America. So if you want the title of world champions, then you have to come and play us. So silly, stupid question, which I already know the answer to, Spoonie, is like, would the Celtics win that matchup? And then like maybe a better, more expanded question is like, do you think there should be a UEFA Champions League basketball style tournament?
So, I mean, Panathinaikos has Gilbert Stevens. He went to Texas Tech. Like, he's a really solid wing. Like, I think he would actually match up. I have no idea. I'm making that guy up. No,
I totally believe you.
We'd beat the shit out of him, dude. Come on. Like, those guys aren't good enough for the NBA, or they'd be in the NBA. Like, sorry, dude. But a UEFA Champions League of basketball would be fucking amazing. They absolutely should do that. Like the 4 best teams in the NBA and then like the 2 best teams from like France, Germany, I think Greek League, Spain. That would be so cool. Do it in the summer, like once every 4 years. Obviously Champions Leagues is yearly, but like for this purpose, do it on the off year that it's not the... You could even do it the same year as like the World Cup of basketball or whatever. Who gives a shit about that? Would be so fun. They should absolutely do that shit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the guy said in his quote, part of what he said was like, the Celtics want too much money to come out and play us. And it's like, yeah, dude, of course we do, because we've got so much money and revenue to earn elsewhere. And if you want us to take the risk of potential injury, you're going to have to pay us for that risk. So I think that's the thing that's maybe stopped it from happening to this degree, other than just the volume of basketball played by top level guys around the world as it is, and especially when you factor in FIBA and the Olympics and other tournaments. It's like, okay, right, you want us to come out and play more basketball, quick turnaround after a long trip into another time zone, like you're going to have to pay us for that privilege. And on one hand, of course you would love to see it, but it would just be like multiple NBA teams playing themselves in the top 2 or the top 4 at the end of that tournament, right? So it's like, why do we even need it? We just
but hey, real quick, Panathinaikos also have a clover as their logo. So yeah, the two world champs, both clovers. So
there you go.
Fun fact.
Repeat on both sides again next year.
That's right. Let's do it.
Let's go. All right. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with another pod at the end of this week, probably. And then we're just going to keep running it back as needed. Maybe 1-2 pods per week. We'll try and maintain that output. And looking forward to Team USA and Aussie Boomer basketball from next week. Spoonie, love your work, man. Until next time, go Celts.